Good evening, everyone. We're going to kick into this. I'm reliably told that this lectern is in the middle of the hall. It's not set up in the middle. So I'm going to stick with that one. But it's great to welcome people involved in Year 9 and 10. The students themselves, but also parents. Great that you're here. There's always a temptation in 9 and 10 not to come because you've had your children, I'm talking about adults now, in high school for a couple of years. You know the drill, you know how it works. And there are some that would say, well, 11 and 12 is a really important bit. Do we really need to turn up to Year 9 and 10, to the information night? And the answer is, I'm really pleased that you're here. I'll let you into a secret, and the students, you'll say, you know, get a life, but I love school and I love being at school. It's a fantastic place to be in, and this school is particularly a fabulous one. You know the movie The Castle, where Dennis Denuto talks about the vibe of the thing with the High Court. The vibe of the thing in our school is fantastic. And it's the students that do that. And it's what sustains so many of us as teachers. We love the energy, we love their vibrance, we love their sense of fun. It's not always easy, you know that. Teenagers, you're complex things sometimes, but we love working with you. And your mums and dads being here tonight, it signals partnership, because that's something we're on about as a school. Education, yes, in some ways it's outsourced, we are specialists, but we know from so much research and experience that when home and school are working together, when we're on the same page, when we have the same goals, we have the same aspirations, that's when it works well. So I'm really pleased that you're here tonight for an information night. We're going to try and give you just enough information, but not too much. The students will be there thinking, oh, they talk so much. We'll be pleased that it doesn't go too long. So, one of the things I want to say, and this is really important in a school, and particularly in Year 9 and 10, because in some schools they are what I call the missing years, the black hole, that students sort of sink into for a couple of years and they emerge as human beings at the end. We don't want Year 9 and 10 to be the black hole. We're about high expectations. We expect a lot of you. And that doesn't mean that everyone's going to be ducks, no. It doesn't mean that everyone's going to be perfect all the time. We know that we're not. In the same way that we as teachers and as parents, we're not. But we do want to have high expectations because you are very, very capable of doing so many things well. So high expectations is a really important thing. Now as parents we've got to be realistic as well. I'd like to think that my kids are as good as I was at school. In fact, they're a lot better. And I wasn't quite as good at school as I think, I would like to think I was. And I've got to be careful because until the end of last year there was a teacher on our staff who taught me. And I'm so glad she forgot so many things. But so in other words, being realistic is really important. And having those goals that are achievable for our children. Because they have so many different strengths and talents in so many areas. And I'll talk in a minute about this fancy word, neuroplasticity. Because we're not just about the academic achievements of our students. They are important, very important. But we don't want you to be brains on a stick. We want you to be real people. And the neuroplasticity idea is a lot of research that's gone into the development of the brain. Now when I was at school, when you're about 8 or 9 or 10, you're smart, you're average, you're not smart, and that was your path. But what we have learned today is the brain is capable of growing, of shaping. And some parents here would be examples of this, of being told at school, you're only ever going to be able to do this or this. And yet you've surprised everyone, you've surprised yourself. There are people here running companies, businesses, doing all sorts of things academically. And at school, maybe that wasn't necessarily the pathway. So what I'm saying is, through hard work, through discipline, you can steadily work and prove and do so much better than you ever thought you might. So don't sit there and think, I'm never going to be any good, because the brain does grow. And that's why we're on about some other things at school too. We're big on the development of character. And this character thing, it's important for the sort of person you're going to be. And that's really, really important. But as well, by having that character, things like tenacity, perseverance, resilience, They are the sorts of things that help you to do better and better and improve. So we want to embed those things into year 9 and 10. There where those things can be learned. So often I've seen kids in primary school, they are superstars, and there's the steady workers at the end of year 6. And sometimes at the end of year 12, the students doing really, really well. And in our school, there's a lot of evidence for this. But the ones who do really well are the ones who have been able to discipline themselves, to study, to organise themselves, to work steadily over time and improve. So if there's anything you get out of it tonight, students, but I want the parents to hear this too, it's to stick at it, to work consistently. It's not hours and hours and hours of time. Sometimes it's a little bit often. That will help you to grow and develop. Now, as a school, we're certainly about wide involvement for lots of different reasons, but I'm so delighted that there are people here who have musical interests. There are people who love sport. Something I was talking today with a teacher about Duke of Ed. We'd love people in year 9 and 10 to get involved in Duke of Ed and to do some hard things. And the reason we do those things, apart from the fact they're good things to do, is because a lot of the skills you pick up in those things are transferable. Confidence is such an important part of school, being confident enough to try things and do hard things. And so getting involved in those things develops confidence. Sometimes, and I listened to a lady on Friday night, she went to the Paralympics, but she talked about the things she learned in sport that helped her to transfer them to not just her academic career, but ultimately to a whole lot of things she ended up doing as an adult. So those things are of great benefit. And certainly at school we're about whole people as well. Because it takes lots and lots of skills to be successful. We can talk about relationship skills, we can talk about EQ, we can talk about so many other things, and we want them to be a focus. Well-being is one other little thing, and this of course, it's a truism too. Students who are engaged, who are healthy, who are happy, who love being at school, they're the ones that tend to do best. So that's something we want to do, so that, because it helps you through the tough times, because there will be tough times at school. I'm stressed, I've got assignments, my teachers are wanting this from me or that from me. And parents, I do want to say that the temptation as a teacher is always to rescue the student when they're floundering, and as a parent too, you want to rescue them, do those things to help. I want to encourage you to talk with them, give them the skills, or help building the skills of the students. So students, I'm saying to you, mum and dad are not going to rescue you every time. They might talk with you and say, how can I help you? How can I help you to solve these sorts of difficult problems? But one of the things we want through this stage of 9 and 10 is to develop those skills that you can take into 11 and 12. Parents, I'm back to you. Adolescence, year 9 and 10. We're hitting that point, I think, where the students are undergoing the most significant growth, sometimes a little bit earlier, but since they were 5 years old. So there's lots going on in terms of independence, and I think it's a really hard balance, because I want them to be independent, to take it all on themselves, but I want them to do it my way. There's lots and lots of challenges. My little advice here to both students and adults is keep talking. Work together. I know sometimes my parents have no idea, and at home it's the teachers have no idea. They like to play us off against each other. So the talking needs to be three-way. Sometimes parent to child, sometimes parent to school, and the third one as well. Because we want those good habits to develop in this stage. Because the good habits you can develop in year 9 and 10 will take you into 11 and 12. The last thing I want to say just is in terms of this stage, some of you, particularly those in year 9, are doing new subjects, things you haven't done before. I do see the delighted group of girls that get off the bus 4 or 5 times a week having done wood tech, and some of them are really enjoying that. And some of you are doing other subjects as electives, you're developing interest, strengths, and getting an idea of what you're starting to think about in year 11 and 12. Don't decide yet. Even in year 10, take a little bit of time just to think, what are the things that are going to sustain me in 11 and 12? Because we do know in year 11 and 12 that you work best when you love the subject, when you are going to work hard at the subject and you're confident in what you're doing. I did say that was the last thing. I'm going to add one other little thing actually, and this is a bugbear of mine, and Mr. Marchetto will do handstands. I'm an English teacher. I was one of those kids that I used to read under the blankets with a torch. In a holiday when I get a rest, I try and read 4 or 5 novels. In year 9 and 10, sometimes it's when reading tends to go out the window because there's so much going on socially, Yes, I know a lot of you will read online because you want to get your P's when it comes around, so you'll study hard for that. But what I'm saying is don't give up on reading for pleasure. Even at your stage, just that little bit, I still say 15 minutes at night of reading. There's so many lessons about life, about literature, about language, about learning that can be picked up from reading. So it's the smartest 15 minutes I think you can spend just by doing a little bit of reading. I'm not saying 3 or 4 hours, but a little bit of reading will still go a long way, so don't give it up. So they're just my introductory comments, and I'm going to hand over now to our Head of Secondary, Mr. Elliot Sanger. Thanks everyone for being here.
Thanks, Mr. Smith, and I'll just thumb through. Mr. Smith seems to have avoided having his photograph up there while he's been speaking, so I'll just put it up there for a little bit. Okay, right, okay, moving on. All right, look, I'd like to thank you all very much for being here also, and my welcome, and really great to have students and parents here together. Mr. Smith's alluded to exactly why that's important, and that's about the team game. So that it is all about us here together, parents, school, students, all for your best outcomes. That's what we're interested in. So a night like this is really important to have you all here. So as I say, thank you very much for coming. All right, so it's a bit of a journey, and Mr. Smith's taken us on a bit of a journey in terms of that development side of things. It's from year 7 to 10, we've got year 11 and 12, sort of our senior years, and then we've got post-school. And what we're really interested in at Cal Rossi is the whole student, and Mr. Smith talked about that a little bit already. That it's all about all of those different components, not just one or other. If I grab Mr. Smith's example about reading, well, I never did the reading thing, I've got to tell you folks. So students, if you're thinking, well, gee whiz, reading, that's not going to be me. And I was a bit of a late developer, I've got to say, with the reading thing. My thing was sport. Every opportunity I could, I was out there being active because that was me. And so again, whatever it is that's your thing, doesn't mean that you can only you just stick to your thing. You've got to push the boundaries on some other areas that might not come naturally. But yes, year 9 and 10 are really important to stay with those things that you love doing. It is a bit of a dip year. I'm not sure whether Mr. Marchetto might talk about this, he may do, in terms of our learning at year 9 and 10. It does see a dip in terms of engagement with students. And I can speak from, experience. I currently have a daughter in year 10. And we, as parents, are working with a daughter who is finding it hard to stay engaged at this point. So parents, if you're there, I feel for you. I know exactly what that's like. If you're not, excellent. I'm really pleased for you. I'll keep working. So in that sense, stay with the things that you love doing. You might find that at this moment, there might be things tempting you to drop out of those things. Don't do it, is my tip. Stay with it, persist with it. You'll come out the other end and you'll be better for it. But stay as part of the whole thing. Don't drop one to pick up another. Perhaps maybe you can handle both. So think about that. Generally, those people who are busy actually become more organised because they need to be, and then you develop those skills. It also means that you don't spend a lot of time with sort of downtime. We need some, but we don't need a lot. And so it's finding that balance. Staying in there, we're interested in the whole child here, and we want to make sure that there are avenues and opportunities for the kids here at Cal Rossi. We will talk about school values. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this tonight, but it's just to put it up there again. These are the things that are important to us here at Cal Rossi. Key, character traits that we want to develop in students. And sometimes, well, things like resilience, for example, that takes the ups and downs. It's a bumpy road, that year 7 to 12. It is bumpy. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. And actually fighting our way through those, that's how we develop that resilience. And parents sometimes, as Mr. Smith said, we want to jump in there and protect our kids. I get it, I'm one of those parents who love to protect my kids. But sometimes you've got to just take that step back and say, you know what, if I step in here, maybe that won't be the best outcome for my child. Maybe they need to find some space to work through that themselves. Or maybe I need to be their part, but give them some space. That resilience, overcoming those challenges is really important. that idea of selflessness. You know, it is not all about you kids. It's not all about you. There's a big wide world out there. Sometimes it's about mum and dad, or mum or dad. Sometimes it's not just about us, and we need to get a sense of that in terms of looking outward. And we actually find that kids progress and they're happiest when they're actually putting other people first. So there's a real challenge there. Once we start thinking of others, we find we're in a happier space. And I say kids, but that applies equally to adults as well. Inclusiveness, that idea of identifying with others, and I guess the two things go alongside each other. If I'm selfless, I'm mindful of others. If I'm mindful of others, I notice when people are not included. So I might make those efforts to include. And that's important at Cal Rossi, that particular, I guess, value. We want to be inclusive about all that we do. And integrity, well, it's that one about doing the right thing even when nobody's looking, and that's important for everybody all the time. Okay, so focus on learning. We love learning here at Cal Rossi. Staff love learning. Hopefully that transfers to the kids, and even perhaps out to the parents. Parents, I don't know whether you get excited about when your kids come home and tell you what's going on at school, or something they've learned recently. Maybe they haven't told you anything recently. Maybe we're in that monosyllabic grunt stage, which is really hard to get past. You say, "How was your day, dear?" And you get a rather than a, "Well, okay, what was the best thing today?" "Oh, well," and perhaps a story out of that might be something that gets us excited as parents as well, to see what it is that our kids are learning. So we love learning right across our community. Mr. Smith talked about team, I've talked about team. It is that three-way team, if you like. So students, speaking to you, there are two bench players here, super subs if you like, that are here to step in to support you. And in this case, it is all about you. We want the best outcomes for you. So in terms of home, mum and dad, they are there for you. They want to support you in what you're doing. And I know that comes with sometimes a little bit of head knocking over the kitchen table as you discuss homework and needing to get assignments done and those sorts of things. But students, your parents are there nagging you because they want you to do well, not because they like nagging. School's here obviously to support and to help you along the way too. So we're all about you. We do want to support you. Take advantage of that support structure as you go in. Setting high expectations is really important. We want to set high expectations here at Cal Rossi and then support the students to meet those expectations. And it's always great when we play a partnership, again going on the previous slide, between home and school. And so setting those high expectations and going for it, really. Now, effort, working really hard, is really important. But you can't just work hard. If we don't know how to work, if we don't have strategies for working hard, then it's just hard work. What we want to do is actually work smart, if you like. So, students, there is a correlation between effort and outcome. But it's key that you know the right strategies to go about what you're doing. Now, your teachers are the people to speak to about that. Your teachers want to be able to support you for the way that you learn and to enable you to reach those best outcomes. So strategy is critical. It's not shouldn't just be about hard work. Okay, so there are a couple of things that I wanted to mention, spend a few moments on, and this is the first one. Student leave, really important, and this is for students and for parents. Obviously, class time is critical. Again, I won't go back to talk about research and those sorts of things. Oh, yes, I will. But the class time really is the critical time that makes a huge difference in the learning of students. So if they're not in class, we can work out what happens then. So I guess what I'm saying, parents, as we go along the journey, years 7 and 8, having some days off school to go and do some things that we might say were recreational, for want of a better term, is probably not a real problem. It's not going to make an impact. But the further we go down the journey, the more impact that's going to have. As I mentioned, my daughter in year 10, at the school she's at, she has an opportunity to go to Germany for exchange to learn language. We've had a conversation, we'd really like to go, but we're really concerned about the fact that trying to catch back the 3 months of mathematics that she will have fallen behind in an area that's struggling for her, that's a concern for us. So obviously time out of class starts to make an impact the further down the track. And once we get to year 12, really time out of class needs to be a no-no. It's going to have a chance where it's going to conflict with things like assessment tasks, which will make an impact on final outcomes. Earlier on, we're just going to start to develop gaps. So parents, I guess this is for you, as you plan your family holidays and any other activities, try to minimise the impact that'll have on class time. Keep family holidays to holiday time, that's really helpful for your kids. But obviously from time to time there are going to be things that may get in the way. Talk to us about that. We have obligations that are set down by legislation that we have to fulfil. So it does govern whether we can approve leave or not approve leave. And so what I've got up there is really the process of what we might go through to request leave. Now, as I say, we've got to account for each day that your child is at school or isn't at school. We keep our records, we try to be as accurate as we can. And that's really the reason for communication between home and school. But if we're going to have an extended period out of class, then, as I say, we need to go through a process of approval. So that would be by contacting the PA to the secondary school. She will be able to give you a form that you fill out, and then you'll be able to send that through to us. At that point, we'll go through a process of looking at that against the criteria. Now, you can see there are only 4 criteria that we're given to make a judgment on whether that is approved or not. You've got exceptional domestic circumstances, and the word exceptional really is exceptional. Other exceptional circumstances, direction under, well, this is a health act, which basically says you've got a communicable disease that may go straight through the school really fast. So therefore, we'd obviously approve you to stay at home on that one. We'd like you to stay at home on that one. And the last one being, a very interesting one, if you are employed in the entertainment industry or you're participating in an elite sport that may take you out at short notice on certain days, those would be the ones that we've governed or to say that that is approved. If it's outside that, then basically it won't be approved from the school's point of view. Now, I'm not saying that means you can't have your kids, parents. Don't hear me saying that. I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. But what it does do is perhaps think carefully about how that might impact your kids. If you need to take them places, then that's fair enough. As I say, we won't try to stop you, but you may get an unapproved response just simply saying, judged by the legislation, we can't approve it. If you've got more questions on that, I'll be around afterwards, so you can have a chat to me about that, but I'll keep moving at this point. The second thing I wanted to mention was mobile phones, and these things are fantastic. They are not from the devil or anything like that. They're not terrible, but sometimes they become the master instead of the tool. And really, mobile phones, we want them to be tools, we want to be the masters of them. For this reason, we've put in place, I'll talk you through it, but for year 7 to 10, we're basically saying no phones through the day. There's no need for those on the whole. I'll come back and I'll put a clause over here in just a second to come back to. But from year 7 to 10, we've said, look, there's really no need for us to have those. Those who have got iPads are able to access bits and pieces. We've got our MacBooks that have gone into years 7 and 10. And really, that's what we need to be able to learn best. We're also mindful of the distractions that mobile phones can cause, and that's not just in the classroom. We're talking about in the playground in terms of socialisation and those sorts of things. So what we've asked is for students for year 7 to 10, you can have your mobile phone come to school with you, but we'd actually like you to lock it away, put it away for the day, and then pick it up at the end of the day. Parents, for you, one of the things you can help us with is if you're going to communicate with your child during the day, if you can have a conversation with them that you'll leave a text message for them, because they can pick that up at the end of the day. One of the really unfortunate dynamics that we get from time to time, actually I had one in my class this morning, was when one boy decided to answer a text and said, oh look, it's Mum. And there's a sense that that student felt torn. Do I use my phone because it's my mum? Now I need to respect my mum and I need to respond to Mum. And because I've got it here, I've seen it. Or then there's Mr. Sanger over here who's not going to be happy and probably going to take my phone. So it becomes a bit of a quandary for them. So parents, if you can help us with that, if you're speaking with your, if you're needing to communicate with your child, if you really need to get them during the day, call reception at the school office. We will go and speak to your child directly if it is really, really urgent. Otherwise, if it's matters to do with home and pickups and all those sorts of things, which are important, those can probably be left on text messages for them to pick up at the end of the day. Now, we haven't completely banned phones right across the board because, you know what, they are here and they're here to stay. So we are trying to usher those in with some sort of education around what's appropriate. So time and place. And that's why for year 11 and 12, under instruction from teachers, they may use those in the classrooms from time to time. We also try to understand that as senior students, it's a bit of a privilege that they may be able to access their phones at recess, lunch, but there's a level of understanding that, again, social norms would be that I don't sit in my group of friends and chat away on my phone with my friends. That if I'm talking on a phone, I draw myself away from the group, do what I need to do, come back to the group. So it's a momentary thing. Again, trying to educate our kids how we might use those phones rather than be mastered by them. Okay, that's probably enough I want to say on that one. Okay, finally, just who do you speak to? It is a team game, so who are the people that are really important to your kids in the front line? Firstly, we've got Mrs. Cameron and Mr. Howie on the relevant campuses. They are the assistants to the head of secondary and from day to day are involved in the running of those campuses. So there's two really important people. Two other really important people, we have the leaders of wellbeing for Year 9. For the girls, that's Miss Lasker. For the boys, that's Mr. Fletcher. In Year 10, we've got Mr. Fay for the girls and Mr. Leach for the boys. Again, these are people who are there to support your child, students. They're there to support you day to day as you work out as you go through your journey. Now, of course, we've got a bunch of teachers at the back who have joined us this evening. Thank you very much, staff, for joining us. They are also really important people to you in terms of what goes on for you at Cal Rossi. That's in terms of your classes, but you know what? They're not just classroom teachers. So they are here to support you. So please, please use them. All right, that's enough from me. I'm going to invite Mr. Doran to come up and talk to us about the next bit. Thank you very much.
Three things to go through quickly with you. We are a big organisation. When you think about a few hundred staff and almost 1,000 students across prep to year 12 and approximately 1,600 parents, there are a lot of ways of communicating. A lot of ways that it can go well, as well as some ways that it can go not so well. We are in the process of developing a communications policy at the moment. About 80% of it is directed towards us as staff, how we should conduct ourselves and the appropriate ways to communicate, etc. But I just wanted to point out a few things that are pertinent to parents. First thing is that I would urge you, if you do need to contact somebody at the school, to start with contacting somebody who's probably going to have the day-to-day contact with your son or daughter. So if it's an academic matter, starting with speaking to the class teacher of that subject, for example, or then potentially going to the head of that department. If you go straight to Mr. Smith every time there's a question about homework, more often than not he will not be able to answer it, I won't either. You are far better off going to the person who can answer it rather than making things inefficient by going to the wrong person. Similarly, if it's a matter of well-being, the suggestion is that the mentor teacher for your son or daughter is a good place to start, and then the leader of well-being, the people who are introduced to you on the screen. And then gradually, if need be, things can be taken further along a seriousness line. A few other things. Every element of the communications policy is based on those key principles that we try to develop within the school: selflessness, integrity, etc. So you will see that throughout the policy in one way or another. You might think that at any time of the night or day you can get on the phone and speak to the teacher. One of the key things that they will obviously not be able to speak to you is when they are actually teaching your children or somebody else's children. You will usually need to wait for a little while. Because there are many other duties that teachers perform, not just teaching the particular class that your child is in, we will try to get back to you, usually quicker than the 2 days that's written on the screen, but that is our aim, to make sure that we get back to you. We have a lot that's going on. School's a very busy place, so we would ask that you be patient in getting a response. If you do have an issue that's more than just a simple question, I would suggest making an appointment so that it can be discussed properly. And the other thing I would ask is that, particularly if it's something that you are a little bit hot under the collar about, I know I get hot under the collar plenty of times and realise later on that I didn't know all the facts. If I can ask you to ask questions calmly, then we're far more likely to come to an appropriate solution. Moving on, HSC. You might be thinking, well, that's a long way away. In some ways it is, some ways it's not. I'd like to talk about last year's HSC results. Those were some of the results which you may have seen advertised in the paper. A great group of results that were really at the top end there that we can be very proud of. Those students worked very hard. The great thing is that they also had other interests. But there are some other numbers that I'd like to put there. I haven't forgotten number 2. I do know how to count. First one is number 1, that we were, according to the Sydney Morning Herald, the top-ranked school in the New England and North West. 3 is because that's the third of the last 4 years in which that has been the case. And the 1 year where we weren't, we were the second-ranked in the area. And another highlight was the 4 students who earned top 10 in the whole state for one of their subjects, which was a truly exceptional result. But the thing that I'm probably prouder of is when we look at the whole group. What I've got here is some graphs. This is the exciting bit, guys. Okay, some graphs. This is that cohort when they were in Year 7. These are their NAPLAN results. The grey are the statewide percentage of students in each of the different bands that were possible there. The red is our particular school, that group when they were in Year 7. What is important to remember is that every student around the country is growing a lot between Year 7 and Year 12. Everybody has developed a lot in their capacity to think through different sides of an argument, express themselves well, learn key facts, apply them in certain situations. The interesting thing is, are our students growing at the same rate as other students? What we have here are the HSC results. Same students, both statewide, when they got to the HSC. The light grey is the statewide distribution. The dark grey is probably how our students should have performed. In other words, if they were slightly better in the third top band, for example, in Year 7, then they probably should be slightly better than the third top band when they get to the HSC results. This is what actually did happen. First of all, if we look at the lower bands, we underperformed, if you like. There are fewer of our students than should have been the case in those bottom bands. So for example, if you look at band 3, the dark grey is where we should have performed. We have considerably fewer students in that band. Where have they gone? Did they just not turn up to the exam? No. It's because those students have effectively grown quicker than their counterparts around the state. And you can see that we are more strongly represented in those upper bands than by rights we probably should have been able to. So to me, that is probably a far stronger indication of how well those students had gone, because it looks at all of the students, not just the superstars. And it's something that, to me, gives a lot of comfort to say something right is going on in this place. Every year there are stories that thrill teachers, and to be honest, while we do like to see the students who perform at the very top, often as teachers are looking at the HSC results, the greatest thrill is from seeing students who are not the superstars, but the people who really worked hard and they were rewarded for it. So for example, when those NAPLAN results for Year 7 were there are a number of students who were identified as being below the national minimum standard. Those students grew with us and not only completed the HSC, but performed in some cases up in those Band 3 results. They have really grown an awful lot, and in many ways as teachers that gives us a greater thrill than the really elite performers. The last thing I wanted to mention is that each of you students will, at the end or later on in the year, be making subject selections for next year, whether that's the next round of electives or making your choices for Year 11. We will commence that process in August, so you will be sent out by email the subject selection information booklet to give you as much information as we can. Then in about mid-August we have the information sessions where staff will be present, so you can find out information directly by speaking to people from each faculty. At that point you will also be emailed passwords to where you can log in and indicate your preferences, far more efficient than having pieces of paper flying all over the place. We have deliberately this year made that information session on the Friday before the boarding muster. So hopefully for particularly boarding families, that they can really get value for money in terms of coming to Tamworth for that weekend. And we look forward to interacting with you then. Thank you. I'll hand over to Mrs. Chase.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Amber Chase. I'm the Director of IT, and I'm just going to speak to you a few minutes about the Hub, which is our new interface that's come out. The kids are using it a lot, and the parents are getting into it as well. So we thought it was a good opportunity to introduce you if you haven't had a look yet. If you go to thehub.calrossi.nsw.edu.au, there will be a login page for you. The logins for parents were emailed out on the 1st of February. However, if you can't find the email or somehow have missed that, please do email us at thehub@calrossi and all the other bits, and we can resend you out your login details. When you log in, this is just my parent page. I also have a son in Year 10, so sorry, he's here. This is what your parent page will look like. So this is going to be basically your one-stop shop for all the information that you need about what's going on at the school. So there's things like, this is where you'll find your newsletters. It's where you'll find forms and policies that you'll need. There's information about boarding, about the uniform shop. You can order your uniforms online. So the link is there for that, as well as a secondary assessments information page, which is really important, and Lisa Hunt will talk to you about that in a minute. There's also information about sport under extracurricular, which is important. That's where the sport coordinators are putting draws, results, any information that you need about sports. So there's a lot of important things there. On the left-hand side, though, you'll see that under My Name, there's a profile button and then a settings button. The settings is where you can actually turn on and off your notifications. So if you would like to have notifications emailed to you, for instance, when a new newsletter goes up or when your student has something due, you can actually have something emailed to you or a message sent to your phone. So that's a handy place to look. The other thing that's over in that left-hand column, a little bit further down, is join and manage groups. There's going to be a lot of groups starting up around the school. So far there are some things in there that will be of interest to you, including an introduction to, for new parents to Cal Rossi. If you're new to the school, there's a lot of handy information there for you, so you might like to join that group. There's also groups like boarding, so if you're a boarding parent, or even if you're not a boarding parent, a lot of day students have interaction with boarding students, and sometimes it's handy for you to know what's happening in the boarding house, so that can be a handy group for you to join. So take a look there when you get a chance. Underneath you'll have a list of all of your students, And you can look at their timetable, you can look and see what work their teachers have put in there and when it's due, which is nice as a parent, probably not so nice for the students, sorry. But as a parent to know when they have things due, when they say they have no homework, may not necessarily be the case. So a nice place to look. It also gives you a link to their class pages so you can see some of the stuff that's going on, who their teachers are, and email them directly from there if you'd like to. There's also the calendar on there, and you'll also get notifications. And the notifications can be sent directly to parents specifically about what's happening for them. So for instance, very soon we'll be sending out a notification to parents about the Year 9 Boys Expedition with a link to the paperwork and things that you'll need there. So there's a lot of handy information there for you. The other part is an app. There is an app if you go to Google Play or the App Store. If you look up Cal Rossi, you can actually download the app. And it's basically an app face for the hub. So you can get all your information in app format. Your notifications will pop up when you get a message with a little red 1 in the corner. We all love those. But it's an easy way to access that information. There's also an absentee button on there, so which is handy. If your student is going to be away, you can just go to the app, click on absentee. It automatically populates, once you log in, automatically populates the information about your child specifically, and then you can say, yes, they're going to be away today, and you can select the reason, whether it's sick or whatever the case is, and that automatically sends it into the school so that we can record that on our system. So that's a handy way of reporting absences. So do take a minute to download the app, that's quite helpful. For any assistance that you need with the hub, please email us. This presentation will be on the hub as well, but definitely contact us. You can ring reception and they can put you through to the IT department, and someone there can help you with your login details if you need it, or if you can't find things, etc. in the hub. But do get in contact and let us know. Thanks. Pass to Mr. Marchetto.
So this is the picture of the dip that a couple of staff members have talked about. If you see there, percentage of students who love school by grade. Well, I'm pleased to say that it doesn't have to be this way, and that you can inoculate and protect and support and guide students to not dip into this little abyss and return to where they are in Year 12. So obviously it is a big couple of years, Year 9 and 10. We've had an increase in homework, increase in projects, study routines become ever more important, and obviously assessment tasks are ever present. And so I want to try and provide some support and guidance for you tonight with this. And in the partnership between school, home and student, our educational alliances here or partnership is based on 3 things. Patience, which is ever tested. Not capping expectations. I'm constantly surprised by the students that I teach in Year 9 and 10, pleasantly. People sitting in this room last week asking questions at Chaffey Dam and asking really good open-ended questions, showing that they've got the knowledge, that they've got the interest, and that they can articulate themselves. And the last thing is, as Mr. Sanders spoke about, is deliberate practice on the strategies that teachers give you. Very, very important. I'll share where you can get some extra resources in a moment's time, but one of those is to be able to understand the forgetting curve. Today I observed in primary school spelling tests taking place at the beginning of Monday in the week. And Ms. Dalziel and myself talked to each other about, will these students get the opportunity to return to this spelling list in weeks to come? Because they need to, because the brain can play tricks on you. You can be lulled into a false sense of security and think that you know how to spell something or that you know the knowledge now. But if you don't return to it routinely, as the graph shows, it will go into being forgotten. And that is really, really important. Of course, there's after-school help. All the teachers that offer their tuition there would love to see more students take this up. It's such a great opportunity to get one-to-one or group tuition in the subjects that you want to just get help with. And all of those are now, I think, available, so that's on the hub. So that's a fantastic thing to be aware of. Last year, all staff worked really hard on producing study skills or how to approach assessments and their subject within their disciplines. And it was really well put together. There's a great document on there which details those subjects and the strategies to succeed. So I commend that to you. There's a video of last year's study skills presentation that you can dip into and look at as you wish. And then there's also a student and parent study guide to work through that takes you through how to set up a timetable, that takes you through how to approach assessments as they fall due. So we lastly have late last year paid for a subscription. It's called ELES Study Skills Handbook, and I'll circle that for you. It's found in this tab or this tile here. We go into there, and then on the right hand side next to the video there, you'll see there's an access code for you. So it's Karossi is the username, and the password's 140 success, and there's a host of fantastic ideas there from Dr. Prue Salter that I would highly recommend both parents and students go into and look at. How to set up your room, how to minimise distractions, how to obviously start on a project, etc., etc. And lastly, I want to talk to you in the absence of Stephen Lawson. He sends his apologies, that is the head of maths. He'd like to share with you an area within the hub under Year 9 Mathematics. This year there are 2 strands of pathways for mathematics, and he would like to say that this is where you can find the details on those 2 courses. And again, Mrs. Hunt will talk to you about where this presentation will be found in her presentation next. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for coming. I'm going to talk to you about where we can find things on the hub. So as you can see, up here I've logged in as a parent, which is the way you'll all log in, and you can see underneath on the second row of tiles, in the middle it says secondary assessments. If you click on there, it will take you to this page, and you will see all the grids for year 7 to 12 for every subject for the rest of the year. So if your son or daughter are in year 9 or year 10, you'll click on either year 9 or year 10, and it'll take you to each subject. This is an example from year 7 of how we've set it up. This is English, and we've got each term what's due, how much it's worth, and what form it's to be presented in. We're working at the moment, and some of these are available. The assessment tasks and what's required will be hyperlinked to those tasks. So if you hover over the task, it will take you to what is required. Also, going back, where it says year 9 and 10, that's, if you click on that after tonight, that's where this video presentation will be. So if you've missed anything, you'll be able to go back and have a look. Secondly, I'd just like to talk to everyone tonight about plagiarism. The act of using another person's work or ideas is actually intellectual theft, and we take it very seriously here at Karossi. So we just want everyone to be aware that we do take it seriously, and that students need to understand before presenting any of their work that when it does go through the hub, there is a thing called Plague Scan, which scans every piece of information that you hand in. So in short, that's all the areas of how we identify plagiarism. But basically, we'd like to avoid penalties. We'd rather have an education around plagiarism. So if you're concerned about some piece of work that you'd like to submit, or if you're as a parent are concerned, please come and talk to us, talk to your teacher, but we'd rather talk about it before penalising. So if in doubt, seek assistance. Thank you.
Good evening everybody, I think I'm the last one, so just bear with me for 5 minutes. good old graveyard shift. Student wellbeing, I'll talk generally about this across both campuses. Mrs Cameron apologises for not being here tonight as well. One thing we've done structurally this year is to increase our mentor time. So that time between periods 1 and 2, we've got 20 minutes there. We used to have 10 minutes, and you can imagine travelling between classes, from classrooms to that room where the mentor group was. It wasn't probably a great efficiency of time. So we've got 20 minutes there, which I think has been proving very valuable already, where relationships can be built between the mentor teacher and also the students in a bit more depth. During that time, there are many different things that can occur, and I might cross over to student behaviour and discipline as well with this, but there are a lot of different activities that can be done, including wellbeing, and Mr Ambrose, our Director of Wellbeing, has put some activities there for staff to utilise where they see fit, hopefully building up positive psychology from Dr Siegelman, I think, who's done a lot of work on that, and also in terms of looking at the study skills that Mr Marchetto's mentioned. There are also resources there, so I'm sort of used to that time as a bit flexible, a bit fluid, depending on over the time of the term and also the time of the year. Also things like diary checking, maybe down the track uniform checking as well, as a central point where that can be done will be occurring in that mentor time. So I think that's been a very valuable shift we've made this year. If there are issues, the leaders of wellbeing are the first points of contact for that, so please get in contact with the relevant leaders of wellbeing for that year. Also, if there's bullying issues, and I guess I'm talking to students and parents here, please let us know early if you think there's an issue. There's being rude, there's being mean, and then there's bullying. They're different sort of concepts. So if you think there's an issue, please let us know early, because I know year 9 and 10, that's the time where relationships get a bit testy, where those hormones are flowing, etc., etc. So I remember from my time at school as well. So please let us know early, and hopefully we can nip things in the bud and deal with them quickly and efficiently, but also fairly. And in terms of behaviour, I guess the same sort of thing. We're not going to ring you or email you if there's a small occurrence that's happened at school where we don't think it's necessary, and I guess alarm you. We alert, not alarm. So if there's a pattern of behaviour we think is maybe not going down the right track or needs to be corrected, we might contact you and bring you in if necessary. But it's only if there's issues that are developing in a pattern. Mind you, we're looking at positive behaviour too and rewarding that. And I've already had positive emails from staff talking about students who are making progress this term, so it's been great to see as well. The last thing I'll talk about is expeditions. We've got the Year 9 boys coming up very soon, going kayaking on the Barrington River. It's a great expedition. I've been on that. I haven't been for many years, but I've been there once, and it's a great. Hopefully, there's enough water there. Is there, Mr. Scott? No, we're struggling. We're probably going to struggle there, as we all know. But we'll see what other things we can do with that. But that's the planned expedition for the Year 9 boys. I don't have much authority to speak about the Year 9 girls expedition, but going to Sydney, you can see it involves lots of different things. Stepping out of the comfort zone, thinking about that attitude or value of selflessness, I guess, from the activities that they do there. So that's the Year 9 girls. Year 10 girls, Mount Warning. Once again, this is a challenging expedition from what I've heard. I haven't been on it myself. You can see all the activities that involves there. The boys this year, they're going to Mount Warning as well. That's a shift from previous years. Once again, when these decisions are made, there are lots of pros and cons. I think there was a feeling last year with the short-term 4 and all the activities happening after the junior exams that having a Year 10 expedition, other things weren't being able to be done properly or well leading up into the end of the year, and also for preparation for the next year. So as a choice, we made the decision to go with the Year 10 boys to Mount Warning. This is still hopefully, and I think the plan is to have that diamond model still in place, so the girls and boys doing separate activities, so it's still tailored to that particular year group based on each campus. For that, Mr Leach will be leading that as the Year 10 Leader of Wellbeing. That's about everything I think for tonight. I think Mr Smith might just say something to finish.
Thanks, Mr. Howard, and thank you, everyone. What I just wanted to say is that we've got a lot of our teachers here. They're not just here to support us, but they're also here to support you. And certainly we're not saying go away quickly, but please make yourself known to the teachers. And there's certainly an opportunity, as we talked about that communication, to do that. Students, introduce your parents to your teachers. It's a good thing to do. It might actually help. You can get in first, but please make use of our staff. I want to say that I love our staff. We have a very, very, very capable staff. I could go on for a long time. A lot of them are HSC markers. There's a number of them even on exam committees in New South Wales, so it's not little Tamworth. These are people who are making a difference across New South Wales in education. So use them, make yourself known to them, and thank you so much for being here tonight.